So we're going to have a partnership with them. I don't know how it'll work out. We need to negotiate with them on exactly how it'll work out. But they will have control of that land. And whatever resources we might need, what resources might we need, maybe water. You know what? I definitely trust our natives a lot more to protect the water because, look at what they're doing in North Dakota. Water is life. These people believe in protecting it. The feds don't. The feds believe in exploiting it for profit. So I'd much rather, if we need water resources, I don't think it's going to be a problem negotiating with that with them. I'd much rather negotiate that with them than with the feds. So I'm not concerned at all. I think this is a good idea. It's the right thing to do. It'll be good for both.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And let me think. So instead of exploiting our Native American friends who can teach us how to really, really take care of the land and get a lot more out of it, we're going to be turning over a new leaf. And not only that, we're going to hopefully be watching out for our women and our other very suppressed peoples, like even elderly people and Black people and LGBTQ people. And I'm hoping and believing, I really, really need to believe that we're... Bob, can you mute yourself for a minute? Thank you. I really, really need to believe that we're going to boot the current administration and, really give them what for and make sure that they get the justice that's coming to them and put people in their place who actually have the best interest of all our people at heart, which includes all these smaller communities within America that I just mentioned, like the LGBTQAI Society and the Black people and the Latin American people and women and our elderly people and our children and our poor who need access to decent health care, because we all do. We all need access to decent health care. And the people who are right now in Congress, they don't care about you. They don't care about any of us people. They have their, nice cushy job in the nice cushy White House with their nice health care plans that are paid for by their work in the White House, what little work they're actually doing, which is not working for us. They run away from us. They dodge questions and they refuse to allow us into their public offices where we're supposed to be able to tell them what we want and need for them to do for us. They're supposed to be working for us and they're just not. They're ignoring us. They're trying to shut us down. They're trying to make protests against the law. And all manner of things. And most of what they're doing is actually against constitutional law. So if our own government will not follow the laws as set out in our Constitution, then our Constitution is a sham and we need to do something about it. We need to break off or find people who will follow the laws as laid out in our Constitution and know that they are not above the law. Bob, you want to come back on and have a say here?
Yes. Now they're trying to pass laws to criminalize protest against not just the water protectors in North Dakota, but everywhere. The same thing with the Antifa. Now they want to make it a 15-year prison sentence if you protest with your head covered. But, it's kind of funny. They didn't have a problem with the KKK covering their head for over 150 years. Now that, the Antifa that are leftists are doing the same thing, now they want to criminalize it. They're going after, like I said, the water protectors. The Constitution says you have a right to peaceful protest. So they're violating the Constitution. I mean, this is really a banana republic, and really corrupt. And they're also bringing religion in. They want to turn the place into a theocracy. California needs to get out of that. We don't need such a corrupt, rigged system telling us how to run our affairs. As the fifth largest economy on earth, We're more than capable of setting all our own policies out of Sacramento. We don't need a capital 3,000 miles away that is really corrupt, rigged, immoral, completely immoral, not democratic at all. We don't need that. California can do better. We can set all those policies. Now, there's a discussion I saw earlier they're having that, what about, like the rest of the country, and aren't we risking retaliation from the United States? Well, what I've also long advocated, and I think it's a good idea, is I lived in Europe as well, and I like the model of the European Union, which is a union of sovereign nations, not states. So another thing I advocate, I think would be in California's best interest and everyone's best interest, is just dissolve the entire federal government and replace it with something like the EU, a North American Union, where California would be a sovereign nation, but we would be in a common market with the rest of the continent, including Canada and Mexico. And that's the way to go. The federal government is, in my opinion, downright evil at this point and needs to go. Now, I think we want to maintain, there's a lot of good people in this country. The system, the American people really aren't bad. The system is really corrupt. And like I said, downright evil. But we can have a relationship with the rest of the continent through a better union, but not a union of states. We're done with that. The federal government's too powerful. Something more like the EU, which would be a common market mostly, and cooperating in other areas. We could have a NATO-like agreement for defense of North America, which would be a good idea. But other than that, the former states would be sovereign nations. And we've already got Canada and Mexico in a common market through NAFTA. We already cooperate with Canada on defense through NATO and NORAD. So I think that's the way to go. California is not small. It's a G7 nation by every measure. But small nations can be successful within a common market. Like, for example, Belgium is probably about the same size as Connecticut. But it's a very successful country because they have access to that huge 400 million plus common market. And they're also not defenseless either because they're part of NATO. So I think these multinational arrangements work a lot better for the future. And I'd like to see something like that for North America. We can have a common market. We can have a common defense, maybe even a common currency, a North American dollar, or something like they have the euro in Europe now. Germany no longer uses the Deutschmark. They use the euro.
I've heard another idea bandied about, Bob, about how we could we could go to the UN and become an unrecognized nation of peoples because we have enough unrecognized people in California to do just that. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do. I think that's a stepping stone towards independence. That's a stepping stone. That's not something we want long term. That basically would be informing the UN and the world that we intend to become a sovereign nation, and that this is a stepping stone because the United States government will resist it. So I see that as a stepping stone, and we should probably pursue it. But I don't see that as the end means. No, the end means is independence.
Excellent. Well, we have to go that direction then. And one way, folks, you can look into that a little more, learn a little more about it, is by looking at the group for which I am currently working a little bit. They are called California Calls for a Constitutional Convention, and I know that there are a few movements that have this sort of goal, and that one of the movements is not founded by just American people. It's sort of sponsored more by the Russians. So you don't want to go there. They want to break up California into smaller bits and pieces in order to weaken us. And as Hillary said, we are stronger together. Hillary Clinton said it. We have to always remember it. We have to always follow through on that. We are stronger together. And this is why they don't want us together. They're scared of us. They realize that we are very powerful together as a people. And so they would like to see us split up and more power given to the current administration by bolstering Republican votes, because Republican votes tend to be very, very conservative, so to speak, but they're not really conserving anything. They're not conserving land, they're drilling it. They're not conserving clean air and water, they're polluting it by taking away or tariffing and taxing to death solar endeavors here in California. And if we stick together, then we can, as one, become a nation of our own, a sovereign nation. And that will give us power to protect our clean air and water for our children, and not have things happen like what has happened in Flint, which is still a mess that is not cleaned up. Flint still does not have clean water. And now the government is taking away welfare programs that help out with getting the clean water out to the people in Flint that still need it. And I'm not calling them the right thing. Welfare is not the right thing to call it. It was a sort of a reparation being made by the giving of free water in Flint. And also reparations have not really finished being made in Puerto Rico, which is another American territory, in case anyone's forgotten. And it seems like a lot of people have. There's a lot of bigotry flying about in the air now here in the United States. And it's another good reason for California to separate herself from that, because it makes us look really bad. Bob, do you want to take that away?
Yeah, let's be honest about Puerto Rico. It's a colony. Conquered and annexed 120 years ago, this year, in 1898. That's 120 years ago. Colony that's been, there's a number of military bases there. It's not a territory. It's not a free association. It's a colony. And, one of the things I like about the idea of a North American Union is we would be able to offer Puerto Rico nationhood, but within the North American Union, and they would be sovereign, just like us. We would help them out. A lot of the countries within the EU, like Greece, struggle, and the richer countries like Germany help them out. So I don't really have a problem with California as being a rich country, giving aid to someone who maybe is struggling like Puerto Rico. But it shouldn't be used as a baseball bat. That's the way the Feds use it.
Right.
Right, and they've been using a baseball bat against Puerto Rico for 120 years. I grew up in New York with a lot of great Puerto Rican friends. One of my best friends is Puerto Rican. Javier was his name. He helped me to learn Spanish. They're wonderful people. I think what's been done to them is absolutely disgusting. It's a disgrace. And, I would like to see if California with some of the bigger blue states could put together some sort of North American Union to where we could really help Puerto Rico.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be great. And so we've had issues in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico still needs help after the hurricanes. And the United States really owes them that help because they are Americans, even though they're, a colony, as you say, that's true. And the thing is, the United States, again, as I said before, is not working in the best interest of her people when she doesn't send aid or continue aid as long as it's needed to those people where they're hit by hurricanes, floods, fires, tornadoes, whatever the earthquakes, whatever the natural disasters are. When the federal aid to those people stops and it's still needed, then your federal government is telling you loud and clear that they do not care about you people, and you need to listen to that. You need to really, really listen and pay attention. Take it into account in your vote, in the very next vote that you got.
Let's look at that judicial committee that's deciding on Brett Kavanaugh.
Let's do that.
Places like. Let's look at it. From places like Utah, Iowa, Kentucky, South Carolina, all old white men, and collectively, the states they represent, if you added them all together, are still a fraction of California's economy.
That's
right. They're going to decide a Supreme Court justice for us. A bunch of old men who won't live to see the consequences, and whose collective states don't even add up half the size of California's economy.